Whether it's the missing loot from a heist that was carried out long ago, paintings that have gone missing, or strange artifacts that defy belief, history is filled with inexplicable events that are yet to be explained. Historians are constantly trying to solve these mysteries, and with time, they might finally be able to put some of these cases to rest. Number 10. Some of the most perplexing mysteries that continue to baffle historians are artifacts that have been uncovered, and which seem to make no sense. In some cases, they're called out-of-place artifacts, but in others, they're perplexed by the fact that these items have remained well-preserved for thousands of years against all odds. One such artifact is called the Sword of Gujian, and has been dated to around 2,500 years ago. It was discovered while a team of archaeologists was working along the Zhang River in China. The purpose of the excavations was to unearth a series of tombs that had been uncovered. But while this work was being carried out, they came across a most unexpected artifact among 2,000 others that were removed and preserved. But the Sword of Gujian was by far the most impressive. It was found alongside the remains of someone whose coffin had been badly water damaged. The casket had been in the ground for more than 1,000 years, and hence they found it remarkable that the sword was in such good condition. It's thought that thanks to the excellent craftsmanship of the sword, including its scabbard, which was almost watertight, the blade was protected from the underground water that damaged the casket and other natural elements. The blade measures 22 inches in length, and it contains a hilt measuring 3.3 inches. When it was removed from its scabbard, the blade was virtually perfect, and by many accounts still sharp enough to cut through 20 sheets of paper. The blade itself is made mostly of copper, but it was found to also contain small amounts of tin. The guard is decorated with turquoise and blue crystals, and when the sword was dated, it was found to have been crafted between 771 and 403 BC, which made the condition in which it was in even more extraordinary. Upon inspection, experts found that it contained 8 characters on the blade, and they got to work to decipher what these symbols meant. 6 of the characters explained that the sword was made for the king of Yua, and it was made for his personal use. But this led to a further conundrum. During the period in which the sword was made, as many as 9 different people ruled over the area known as Yua. The only option was to inspect the coffin in which it was discovered, as well as the remains of the person with whom it was found. After this was done, it was ascertained that the blade belonged to Gujian, who's known to have been the king of Yua between 496 and 465 BC. He was known to be a good king who didn't place himself above others because of his high standing. He'd also gained a reputation for his ability to forge ahead during troubling times in his kingdom, often resorting to eating food meant for the common folk, rather than indulging when they were struggling to survive, as was the case with many other monarchs throughout history. It's been suggested that the sword was made for Gujian in honor of his humility and the fact that he remained close to his kingdom's people as far as his standing was concerned. Unfortunately, when the sword was loaned out to be displayed in Singapore, it suffered a crack when a worker attempted to remove it from a display case. It has since remained in China and will likely never be loaned out again as a result. Number 9. When archaeologists uncover a mystery, it usually doesn't take long for scholars, experts, and historians to figure out what that item was used for or who it was made by. But the same can't be said for a strange item that was discovered in Norfolk, England in 2024. One of the strangest aspects of this item is its size. It measures just 0.8 inches in diameter and 0.4 inches in height, which would have made it easy to miss during an excavation. But luckily, that was not the case. It's decorated with an artistic impression of a horse, and according to those who have inspected it, it was created by someone who had superior skills when it came to metalwork, especially silver, since it would have been very hard to create the intricate designs that adorn it. But historians have been left baffled by what it was used for. It's been suggested that it's a piece of jewelry, but it contains no clasps or hooks that are usually found on those items. It's been described as resembling a small crumpled bottle cap, though it would only just fit on the tip of a person's finger. One historian stated that she was surprised at the level of detail that was used to create an object that seemingly served no purpose. She described the work on it as akin to the care taken by someone who was producing a Bible or a piece of jewelry meant for royalty. She's also suggested that the craftsman responsible for creating the artifact was likely skilled in other areas too. They may have worked on important texts and documents that were adorned with a gliding liquid made from powdered gold, which was then mixed with mercury. She drew this conclusion after analyzing the patterns on the sides of the artifacts, and they were very similar to illuminated manuscripts created around that same time period. Upon conducting further research, experts were able to date the item to the 8th or early 9th century. Due to the decorations used, it's thought to have had some kind of religious significance, but this remains mere speculation. If it is indeed a piece of jewelry, it would have belonged to someone of importance, since silver and gold objects were only adorned by those in power, or people who were wealthy due to their status in their communities. Another baffling aspect is how the object could have been fastened to a chain, clothing, or a larger object. It contains no clasps, hooks, or hoops where a chain could be threaded through, and since its discovery, many suggestions have been made, but its purpose remains unknown. Number 8. In northern Israel lies a lake known as the Sea of Galilee, also known as Lake Tiberias. This lake is mentioned in the Bible on several occasions, most notably when Jesus gathered his first disciples, when he walked on water, and when he fed 5,000 people with just 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish, and when he calmed a storm on the lake. This last event is the subject of a painting created by the famous artist Rembrandt van Rijn, called The Storm on the Sea of Galilee. It was painted in 1633 and remains the only known depiction of a seascape that he ever created, which makes it extremely valuable. It depicts a small wooden boat caught in a storm on the lake, and the vessel is clearly in peril as its sails are torn, and compared to the massive waves that it's traversing, it seems almost insignificant. The 14 sailors aboard the boat can be seen praying, clearly desperate to make it to land or to somehow be rescued, though that prospect seems highly unlikely. Hence, the expressions on their faces are desperate, as they face almost certain doom. A few of the sailors are seen desperately trying to steer the boat to no avail, while others are trying to wake Jesus, who's asleep close to the tiller. 4 of the men are attempting to break the sails back into some kind of order, but thanks to the howling wind, this was an impossible task. It's believed that one of the sailors, who's seen holding onto a rope, was supposed to depict the artist himself, though this has never been proven definitively. It's undoubtedly one of Rembrandt's greatest works, but it's also the subject of a great mystery. In 1990, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where the painting was being held, was the scene of a daring heist. On the 18th of March that year, 13 paintings with a combined value of around $500 million were stolen from the building by 2 men who had disguised themselves as police officers. They managed to gain entry to the museum by telling the guard on duty that he was about to be arrested thanks to an outstanding warrant. In the resulting confusion, he was placed in cuffs, and when a second guard investigated, he was also cuffed. They then realized that they were actually there to rob the museum, and made their way to an area known as the Dutch Room. Luckily, when they attempted to steal Rembrandt's self-portrait, they found it too heavy and cumbersome, and decided to leave it behind. The other paintings were promptly cut out of their frames before making their getaway, and they were never tracked down. During the resulting investigation, the FBI offered a $5 million reward to anyone who could provide them with information, leading to the paintings being recovered, but they remain missing to this day. Number 7. The name Fabergé is synonymous with quality and wealth as far as design is concerned. Anyone who owns a piece of jewelry made by the House of Fabergé jewelry firm, which was founded by Peter Carl Fabergé, knows that it's highly sought after and likely worth a lot of money. Among some of the most prominent pieces ever created by Fabergé are the famous jeweled Easter eggs that date back to the late 1800s. They were often given out as gifts by Russian Tsars, such as Tsar Alexander III. One of his most prized eggs which contained a gold hen sitting on golden straw, was given to his wife as a gift in 1885. It also contains a small diamond replica of the imperial crown and a ruby pendant, and when his wife received it, she was said to have been beyond delighted. As a result, Fabergé was appointed as the Tsar's official goldsmith by special appointment, and each year he was commissioned to create more of these themed jeweled eggs. Each one contained a unique surprise inside, and eventually the Tsar had collected a total of 52 eggs, which would have been the equivalent of a fortune. But this treasure would soon be pilfered when the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, took control of Russia in 1917 during the October Revolution. Almost immediately, the Tsar's gold jewelry and other treasures were seized and then stored in the Kremlin's armory. Thankfully, Lenin decided not to have these items destroyed or melted down, but in 1927, Joseph Stalin decided to sell the treasures since he was in need of funds. The items were mostly sold individually, and they were bought by collectors from all over the world. Over the years, the treasure was spread far and wide, and the location of the Fabergé eggs remained a mystery for some time. While some of the eggs adorned the houses of wealthy collectors, others were found for sale in pawn shops for a fraction of their real value. One US man struck it rich when he revealed that the egg, which he'd bought for $14,000, was actually worth $33 million, and he revealed that he'd stumbled across it at a small corner shop. Remarkably, he'd planned to disassemble the egg for scrap, and it had been used as a kitchen counter decoration, but before disposing of it, he noticed an inscription on the clock inside the egg and discovered it was worth a lot more than he paid for it. One by one, the eggs were tracked down and returned to their rightful place, but 6 still remain missing today. The task of tracking the eggs down is made all the harder by the fact that some high-quality reproductions have been made over the years, and on several occasions, people have been left disappointed after finding out that they paid thousands of dollars for an egg that was virtually worthless. Among those that are yet to be recovered are the hen with sapphire pendant, the cherub with chariot, the Necessaire egg, the mauve egg, the Royal Danish egg, and the 1909 Alexander III commemorative egg. The hunt for these eggs is still underway, and it's hoped that in time, the remaining missing eggs will be found if they've not already been destroyed or disassembled. Number 6. Leda and the Swan is a poem written by William Butler Yeats, in which he tells the story of a famous Greek myth. The tale depicts the god Zeus, who's transformed himself into a swan in order to get closer to a human woman called Leda. By the end of the tale, Leda bears Zeus's child, Helen, who's remembered for the fall of Troy and for indirectly causing the demise of King Agamemnon. It's served as inspiration to many artists through the centuries, including Michelangelo, but his depiction of the poem is at the center of an ongoing mystery. It all started when the Duke of Ferrara, Alfonso I, took the opportunity while visiting Rome in 1512 to watch Michelangelo while he was working on the Sistine Chapel vault. He was left captivated by what he saw, and by all accounts it left a lasting impression on him. Then, in 1527, Emperor Charles V invaded Rome, and as a result, Pope Clement VII hid in Castel San Angelo to evade capture, or worse. 2 years later, the Pope would aid Clement VII in retaking the city, after which Michelangelo was given the title of the General Governor and Procurator of the fortifications of Florence. This meant that he would be responsible for fortifying the city, but he had very little knowledge on the subject, and so he was sent to Ferrara, where he learned about fortification and defense from Alfonso I. When his task was complete, Michelangelo got ready to leave, but before his departure, Alfonso commissioned a painting from him, and the artist readily agreed. Once he was back in Florence, he started work on the city's defenses, while also working on a new painting, Leda and the Swan. We know this to be true thanks to an engraving made by Cornelis Boos, who was a master of art in his own right. Interestingly, the engraving shows Leda in the same pose as another of Michelangelo's works, which is called Night, and unsurprisingly, he was working on these two pieces at the same time. It's said that he used a model for the initial drawings for the painting, and that he was actually a man, Antonio Mini, whose features were later feminized, as was a common practice among artists at the time. In 1530, the painting was finally completed, but Alfonso sent a messenger who told the artist that the Duke wanted to see the piece before accepting it and paying the agreed-upon price. This understandably irked Michelangelo, and matters were made worse by the messenger's comment that the painting was only a, quote, little thing. As a result, Michelangelo dismissed the messenger and voided the deal between him and Alfonso, who likely never even got to see it. By this point, Antonio Mini was working as Michelangelo's apprentice, and he was given the task of looking after the painting. It's been suggested that the painting was actually given to him, since he had two sisters who'd not yet gotten married, and if Mini were to sell the painting, the money he received would bring much-needed relief to his financial situation. Mini left Florence with the painting in hand in 1531, and he set out for France. From here, the details of the fate of the painting remain somewhat murky. One version of events has it that the King of France bought it from Mini, and it was being kept at the Palace of Fontainebleau. But this has never been confirmed, and to this day the fate of the painting remains unknown. Efforts were made to restore a copy of the piece, which was created by Rosso Fiorentino, and which is still held at the National Gallery today. Through the years, historians have attempted to track it down, but to no avail, as no one is certain exactly when it was lost, and its location remains one of the art world's most baffling mysteries. Number 5. Most of us have dreamed about stumbling across a great treasure that no one knew about, and that would change our lives forever. But most of us know this is nothing more than a wild fantasy. But there are thousands of professional treasure hunters around the world who search for rumored treasures that have either been lost or concealed so well that they've never been unearthed. One such cache was known as the Yanganates treasure, and has been the subject of much debate as some people doubt its very existence. The mystery of the treasure began in the 1530s, when the Incan emperor Atahualpa and his brother Huascar were embroiled in a civil war against each other. The Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro saw this as an opportunity, and in 1532 he invaded the Incan Empire, and in the process imprisoned Atahualpa and Cajamarca. The emperor was desperate to regain his freedom, and so he started bargaining with his captor, offering him great riches in the form of Incan gold in return for his release. The deal was made, and after the emperor was released, he ordered General Rumiñahui to start collecting gold from all over the Incan Empire. He managed to gather as much as 750 tons of gold, and sent word to Pizarro that the treasure would be delivered to him shortly. But Pizarro grew suspicious that it was all an elaborate ploy to rescue Atahualpa, and before the gold was delivered, he had the emperor executed. Unbeknownst to Pizarro, the gold was very real, and the deal was now no longer an option. Rumiñahui wanted to be certain that the gold wouldn't make its way into Pizarro's hands, and so he decided to hide it from him. He traveled to the north of Ecuador, now known as the Yanganates, where the gold was secreted. Rumiñahui was eventually taken prisoner by Pizarro's men, and despite being treated viciously, he refused to reveal the location of the treasure. He eventually passed away without ever revealing its location. Back in those days, the area was completely uninhabited, and today very few people dared to venture there, since the terrain in the mountain is known to be extremely difficult to traverse. The area lies on the cusp of the Avenue of Volcanoes, and is known to see a massive amount of rainfall every year. Furthermore, it's often covered in a dense mist that can easily cause an adventurer to fall into a crevice, river, or swamp. Nevertheless, some treasure hunters find the prospect of finding 750 tons of gold too alluring to ignore, and every year, many travel into the mountains in hopes of finding it. It's said that at least 3 people knew the exact location of the treasure. Decades later, when Jose Valverde got married to a woman from Latacunga, the woman's father revealed the location of the gold to him as a wedding present. As a result, Valverde lived his life as a very rich man, and before he passed away, he wrote a guide which translates to Valverde's route. The guide was given to the King of Spain, who then sent an expedition into the mountains to retrieve it, but it could not be located, and one man lost his life in the swamps. No records have been found of further efforts to retrieve the gold, but in 1850, botanist Richard Spruce stumbled across the tale of the hidden treasure while he was conducting research into malaria treatments in Ecuador. More than 3 decades later, treasure hunter Barth Blake claimed to have found the cache, which he claimed contained gold statues of animals, humans, and flowers. He planned to return for the treasure, but while sailing to New York, he mysteriously disappeared and was never seen again. Number 4. It's said that a treasure was being transported on a ship called the San Miguel in 1715, and it might be one of the biggest lost treasures of all time, and it's waiting to be discovered somewhere close to Amelia Island off the coast of Florida. On the 31st of July that year, the Spanish galleon was on its way from Havana, Cuba, and headed to Spain, along with the fleet of 11 other ships, known as the 715 Plate Fleet. But they were not far into their journey when they sailed into a massive storm that caused 11 of the ships to go under. The San Miguel was also badly damaged, and according to one report, it was last seen sailing in a northerly direction past St. Augustine, but it was noted that it no longer had a mast, which left it at the mercy of the sea and the elements. As many as 900 sailors lost their lives in the storm, and with so many ships going under at the same time, it's believed that the area contains a massive amount of treasure. Hence, it's now known as the Treasure Coast. According to witnesses, no one aboard the San Miguel survived, and hence it was sailing unmanned. Records have it that the San Miguel was sailing as the fleet's register ship, which means that it was licensed to haul away very valuable cargo. It's been suggested that among its cargo, it was carrying the Queen's dowry, a massive amount of gold and silver, as well as gemstones, spices, and tobacco. Needless to say, the prospect of finding the treasure has lured many fortune seekers to the coast in hopes that they will be able to recover it. But despite the best efforts of human hunters over the centuries, no one has been able to locate it, though it's thought that some expeditions have come close. In 2007, a group of divers came across a cannon on the sea floor that's believed to have belonged to the San Miguel. When the discovery was reported, thousands of people took an interest in the treasure, which is believed to be worth millions of dollars, and many have since traveled to the area in hopes of striking it rich. But searching for the treasure is easier said than done. The sea floor in the area is known to be hard to traverse, and since no one is certain exactly where the vessel went under, the search area is massive. In 1975, 22 gold coins were found close to Amelia Island, and later 11 more were discovered close by. These pieces of the treasure were found after storms hit the coast, which likely caused the coins to be lifted from the sand under which it was buried. One man didn't have to go to that much trouble though, as he found 15 coins while walking on the beach of Little Talbot Island in 1989. Later that same year, 28 more coins were found on the same beach, and throughout the years, small pieces believed to be part of the treasure have been recovered, but the ship and the rest of its haul remain hidden for the time being. Number 3. It's somewhat ironic that a large amount of gold that has never been discovered is said to be located somewhere in the superstitious mountains in Arizona. The legend of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine started in the 1870s when a prospector called Jacob Waltz made a startling revelation. Waltz was a very experienced miner, and according to those who knew him, he had a superior knowledge of geology. He arrived in Arizona in the 1860s, after which he started looking for gold veins in the mountains. Sometime in the 1870s, he's said to have come across a massive vein that would have made him a very rich man, but he kept the location of the gold a closely guarded secret. One account claims that he once sold $250,000 worth of gold to the US Mint, though some historians claim that this was actually done by another man, while others believe the account to be fictional. Whatever the case may be, it was reported that Waltz would often be seen in Phoenix with his saddlebags packed to the brim with gold he'd removed from his private mine. People would ask him where he found it, but he would always remain evasive and give false directions to the mine. As is to be expected, many people tried to follow him to the mine whenever he set out to fetch another haul, but he was an experienced outdoorsman and would easily lose them before traversing the mountains back to his mine. Since he had traveled the route so many times, he knew how to get rid of anyone who was tailing him. Waltz eventually bought a homestead near Phoenix, and when he was in his 80s, he decided that the mine should be hidden. According to some accounts, he traveled to the mine one last time, and upon his arrival, dug a 6-foot hole near its entrance. He then covered it with 2 ironwood logs, which were then covered with soil and rocks. He claimed that the entrance to the mine was so well hidden that someone could walk or drive right over it without ever realizing that they were standing on the precipice of untold riches. In 1891, Waltz's homestead was decimated by a flood, and as a result, he fell ill with pneumonia. Despite the efforts of a nurse to treat him, he eventually passed away and took the location of the mine to his grave. Before his passing, he stated that at least $20 million worth of gold was left in the mine, but he did leave a clue as to its location. He stated that from the entrance he could see the military trail, but added that the mine could not be seen from that trail. He added that the trail of the mine isn't straightforward and that it contains some kind of trick to finding the entrance. Further clues state that it's located in a north-trending canyon, that he could see Weaver's Needle from the mine, and that there's a rock face somewhere along the correct trail. But many people believe that these clues were intentionally misleading, since Waltz never intended for the mine to be found. Number 2. John Dillinger will forever remain one of the most famous and cunning criminals in American history. He got into trouble often from an early age while growing up in Mooresville, Indiana, and he eventually dropped out of school. As an adult, he joined the U.S. Navy, but after serving just a few months, he deserted. In 1924, he attempted to rob a grocer's in Mooresville, but he was caught, arrested, and then sentenced to prison for several years. He was paroled in 1933, and having learned about bank robbery from his fellow inmates, he and 4 other men started robbing banks in Ohio and Indiana. They managed to rob 5 banks in just 4 months, always dressed well, according to witnesses. Later that same year, he was imprisoned again, but 5 men managed to free him from his cell after ending the life of a local sheriff. They then continued their string of robberies in Wisconsin and Indiana, but they were caught up with in Tucson, Arizona. Given his history, Dillinger was sent to the escape-proof Crown Point Jail in Indiana, but there he used a blade and a piece of wood to create a fake firearm that he then blackened using shoe polish. With the fake weapon in hand, he made it out of the prison and is said to have been singing as he made his escape. He then stole the sheriff's car and traveled to Chicago. He became one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives, but in the meantime, he and his accomplices continued robbing banks as far as they went. After a few close calls, he underwent plastic surgery to change his appearance. But back in Chicago, he and his girlfriend had become friendly with a brothel owner named Anna Sage. She, along with the FBI and Indiana police, set a trap. The 3 went to see a screening of the film Manhattan Melodrama at the Biograph Theater, and when they emerged, the FBI was waiting outside. He attempted to flee, but a firefight ensued, and his life was ended, bringing his long crime spree to an end. Some people believe that he got away, and that another man was mistakenly fired at, but his fingerprints proved that he was indeed Dillinger. But one mystery surrounding Dillinger remains unsolved. According to one legend, after a shootout with the FBI on one occasion in 1934, Dillinger managed to flee while carrying a suitcase containing $200,000 in cash. At the time, he and his accomplices were hiding out in Little Bohemia Lodge in Wisconsin, and upon making it out of the firefight, he traveled north of the lodge, where he buried the suitcase with the cash still inside. It's said that he was never able to retrieve it since he lost his life just 3 months later, and ever since treasure hunters have been searching for the suitcase's location. Some people also believe that the loot from one of these robberies is buried somewhere on Pierpont Farm. Some believe that the haul was eventually found and never reported, while some rumors state that it's buried somewhere in the woods, waiting to be uncovered. Number 1. One would imagine that when criminals are planning a daring heist, they take every possible scenario into account so that they can get away with their crime. But in one case that took place in 2017, During a robbery that was carried out in Berlin, Germany, the thieves left a trail of clues behind, and they were eventually apprehended, but their haul has never been recovered. On the 27th of March that year, Ahmed and Wissam Renmo, who were cousins, were aided by a security guard called Dennis W., a longtime friend who was working as a security guard at the Bode Museum. He'd only been working at the museum for a month when the trio decided to stage a daring heist. They broke one of the building's windows to gain entry, and once inside used a skateboard and wheelbarrow to steal a 220-pound commemorative gold coin, known as Big Maple Leaf. The coin was minted in 2007 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Canada's annual Gold Maple Leaf Bullion coin series, and it was put on display in the museum. It was estimated to be worth around $4.3 million, and somehow the three criminals managed to remove it from the building before fleeing. When CCTV footage from the area was checked, though, the three men were seen walking the same route the night before while dressed in black clothing. Once they were detained, Wissam's phone was checked, and searches for how to break down large amounts of gold were discovered. When their getaway car was searched, investigators found small particles of gold that led them to believe that the coin had been melted down, and that those pieces may have been sold. When Wissam's apartment was searched, the police found a rare Armani jacket that he could be seen wearing in the security footage from the night before the heist was carried out. This, along with glass from the broken window that was found on a pair of gloves, was the last clue needed to seal the robbers' fates. At their trial, it was revealed that Dennis had started spending large amounts of money after the robbery. He purchased expensive cars and jewelry, something that his fellow robbers must not have been very happy about. He was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in jail, along with a $108,000 fine. As for the two cousins, they were each handed sentences of 4.5 years behind bars and will need to repay the value of the coin, $4.3 million. But that coin has never been found. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.